So if it feels like the Panthers coaching search seems to be a roller coaster of emotions from ups and downs and highs and lows and seems like it's dragging on forever, you would be correct because the Panthers fired Matt Rhule way back a long time ago. And we heard that the search wasn't going to be a long list of candidates, and it has become a long list of candidates. But the latest reports and updates have thrown a monkey wrench for Carolina Panthers fans, and we now have updates on this list and the search, and things could be imminent and it could be happening fast because reports have come out that the Panthers have narrowed down their list and they have begun and pretty much a good chunk through their second round of interviews.
Steve Wilks had his second interview yesterday, according to me and colleague Tom Pelissero. That is obviously noteworthy, and he is not the only candidate to get a second interview. Frank Reich is having his second interview today. Should also note that Kellen Moore, the Cowboys offensive coordinator, who had his first interview yesterday, was asked to stick around, talk to them again today to give some more info and kind of continue what is either his first/second interview, however way you want to consider it. So it does seem to be these are the three that are still alive.
So in this video, we're going to talk about the latest updates and reports that have come out of Carolina and around the NFL about the latest and who could be the inside track to be the Panthers' next head coach. We're starting right now. What up, though? My name is Aaron Duncan here with the Necessary Blunt Sports Talk, recap and analysis of the Carolina Panthers. So if you want to see more videos like this one, film breakdowns, draft content, and all that good nine with news and updates about this crazy offseason that's coming, hit the subscribe button down below and the bell icon. I do all kind of stuff like this. So if you want to stay in the loop, hit the subscribe button. However, reports really were kind of crazy because we've heard anything from Sean Payton. If you looked at my last video, I was really down bad about the possibility and potential of giving up draft capital to a division rival in the Saints for a coach like Sean Payton, who was a little bit overrated in my opinion. But I'm happy to say that things have starkly changed for Sean Payton. Look at this clip right here.
Yeah, this is interesting, Andrew, because when this all started, the assumption was as soon as Sean Payton decides where he's going to go, then everyone else will know where they're going to go, and then the coaching searches will resume from there. It's now reached a different point, and if you go through the different places that Sean Payton has interviewed, it does not seem like a second interview is coming with any of those places. You have the Denver Broncos, who seem to be focusing their attention elsewhere. Not saying he's out, but they do seem to be focusing elsewhere. You have the Houston Texans, who have not yet requested a second interview with Sean Payton. And then he's going to the Arizona Cardinals for a first interview. That is going to be tomorrow, assuming they get through the Dan Quinn interview and make no moves today. So what am I saying, Mike Garafolo? I'm saying that as of right now, it does not seem like there is a place for Sean Payton. We'll see, but it does not seem like there is a place in the coaching world right now.
Hey, man, nothing warms my heart to see a egotistical, big-headed, cocky coach like Sean Payton have his market pretty much dry up because the asking price was too high, whether it was probably the $25 million he wanted or the multiple draft picks that the Saints wanted. I just think that Sean Payton, all this hype, it seemed like it was drummed up by him. All the drama about the Broncos scheduling a second interview, it seemed to be false to try to put pressure on David Tepper. Shout out to David Tepper for not taking the bait because last time he had a scenario like this with Matt Rhule, he did not let Matt Rhule get on that plane to go to New York to interview with the Giants, and he overpaid. And here we are now back in the coaching market again. So shout out to David Tepper for doing the right thing. And shout out to probably Nicole Tepper and Fitterer, Suleiman, and Dan Morgan for probably cooler heads providing and us not overspending and bidding against yourself. Bidding against yourself is why we ended up having to pay a 2, a 4, and a 5 for Sam Darnold. There wasn't really any competition for Sam Darnold, but we thought it was, so we ended up overpaying. We're making progress. But the Sean Payton news was a relief for me just personally. But also, we heard reports that Shane Steichen, the offensive coordinator for the Eagles, who isn't allowed to meet in person with anybody else until after next Monday, after this NFC Championship game, whether it's win or loss, we heard that he may have the inside track. It had been so quiet on the front of the Panthers side that it made sense that they would be waiting on a Steichen and having narrowed it down to potentially him and Wilks. But a curveball has come in, and according to Benjamin Albright, if you don't want to believe him or not, he put on Twitter that what he heard is that the Steichen interview with the Panthers did not go that well as we thought. So the potential for a young offensive hotshot candidate could be low because Steichen is 37, offensive background. He just doesn't have the experience. And in my opinion, we didn't get specifics of why it didn't go well, but I have to assume that his plan and what he wants to do probably just didn't align with what the Panthers were looking for. They want to develop a young quarterback. They want somebody that's, like I talked about in previous videos, we need stability after going with somebody inexperienced like Matt Rhule. So I understand David Tepper having some second guesses about the possibility of Steichen. Yes, Steichen has the background of being offensive coordinator for a while, of working with Rivers and Jalen Hurts and Justin Herbert, but there's something different about calling plays and having to be the head guy in charge and calling plays as well. We see guys struggle with this all the time and end up having to give up play calling because they can't handle being able to manage the game, making challenges, calling timeouts when you're supposed to. It is a big job to be able to do that. So sometimes a CEO type of coach or somebody with experience is better. And that's exactly what reports have come out. According to NFL insider Josina Anderson, she talked about Frank Wright actually being a candidate to emerge along with Steve Wilks because of the fact that David Tepper's initial hearing of wanting an offensive guy, but more importantly, a guy with experience. So Wilks has experience as a head coach. Frank Wright has experience as a head coach. So that fits the bill about where we are. Frank Wright would be an amazing prospect because he checks the boxes for just those things. He has experience working with Carson Wentz in Philly, helping develop a young quarterback. He was an offensive coordinator for a Super Bowl team to be able to get the most out of Nick Foles, turn him into a Super Bowl MVP down the stretch. So he has experience working with quarterbacks. He got the offensive mind. He has the connections to Carolina. He was the first ever Carolina Panthers quarterback in the first inaugural game. He has the ties. Apparently, a daughter of his actually applied for a job with Carolina and it got accepted. The roots are there, man. If it walks like a duck, it talks like a duck, it probably is a duck. So where there's smoke, I talked about the smoke, there's fire, or there could be smoke from a vape or a hookah, so it could be fake smoke. Who knows? But between Wilks and Wright, that's their experience there. But there's also one more curveball, of course. It wouldn't be the Panthers if there wasn't a curveball in the equation. And that has to do with the offensive coordinator from the Dallas Cowboys, Kellen Moore, the former Boise State quarterback. Now, Kellen Moore has been the offensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys for some time now. But after that showing, well, now everybody and their mama saw that weird last play call against the Cowboys, or how the Cowboys really pretty much laid an egg against that, even though the San Francisco 49ers defense is well. People have been really critical of Kellen Moore. I'm a little bit colder on Kellen Moore at this point myself, but Kellen Moore's only head coaching interview has been with the Panthers. And things went so well on Tuesday night, it was, according to reports, they kept him overnight because the Panthers went ahead and narrowed down their coaches to a second round to finalists, and Kellen Moore made a finalist. So that rounds out the list of Steve Wilks, Frank Wright, and Kellen Moore. Now, Kellen Moore doesn't have that experience that we hear about, but he is that hotshot, young, offensive-minded offensive coordinator that so many people are trending and drooling over these days, but he may just not be everybody's cup of tea. The numbers in Dallas have been phenomenal. They had the number one offense last year, top 5 this year. We know that Dak has had some struggles, and even with the injuries, they were able to pull out some wins with Cooper Rush. So Kellen Moore has the numbers, per se, from an offensive coordinator standpoint, but how much is that just a byproduct of the amount of talent that Dallas has? So you have to try to find that middle ground. Was it talent or was it Kellen Moore? Either way, the numbers speak for themselves. Kind of similar to how Shane Steichen was in Philly. The loaded with talent, how much is it the talent? How much is it Shane Steichen? We don't know. But Kellen Moore to be that one wild card as being the young guy, it's got to be puzzling for me. And I don't think they would keep him in town to just save jet fuel if there wasn't really some good, they weren't really interested in Kellen Moore. So that'll be something interesting to pay attention to as far as where he fits in that ring. But from what I understand, Wright may have the inside track because of the offensive minded, of course, which is what David Tepper wants, and the experience. But keep an eye on Steve Wilks. A lot of people have been kind of just saying, why hasn't Steve Wilks had any other opportunities? If he was that good of a coach, other people would be all over him. I mean, you know the politics of, obviously, the color of Steve Wilks' skin, not to mention he's a part of the lawsuit in the suing the NFL for discrimination and the Rooney Rule. So there's a lot of politics that go into Steve Wilks' operation and the potential of being other prospects. However, reports came out from Sheena Quick, a Carolina beat reporter, saying that the Atlanta Falcons are monitoring the Steve Wilks situation. They've already put in an interview for Al Holcomb for their potential defensive coordinator availability, and now they're monitoring the Steve Wilks position. How true is this? I don't know, because all the narrative about Steve Wilks not having other opportunities, David Tepper understands that, which is probably why he's potentially dragging his feet. If you feel like you have competition for a certain prospect, you're going to have a little bit more of a sense of urgency. And I think Steve Wilks' agent might have put that word out there just to kind of put a little kick in the rear for David Tepper to make a decision, whether it is Steve Wilks or Frank Wright, because Frank Wright is coveted by other teams as well, just like the Cardinals, who already have a young quarterback in place and that he can help work with there, even though he's coming off injury. So this competition for Frank Wright, it seemed like the ultimate fallback plan was Steve Wilks because he didn't have much competition. But I think those reports coming out, it could be legit interest, but it could just be agents playing games to try to say that, hey, you can't just stand around and wait for everybody else and just wait till the end of the night and try to go home with this girl here from the club because nobody else wanted you that you really wanted on your top of your list. So I understand the gamesmanship there. It's the same narrative that Sean Payton's agent did, trying to strum up that there was a bunch of interest everywhere for him when that really wasn't the case. It's all about politics and names floating around and creating certain narratives to apply pressure. But with the three candidates we have, obviously, you guys know my personal favorite is Steve Wilks because of the players, because of what he was able to do and turn around what Matt Rhule did. He did not pick out the groceries, but he still cooked the dinner and made a very respectable meal, had a 6-6, almost went to the playoffs if it wasn't for that last week. I know a lot of people criticize Steve Wilks for not getting the job done versus Tampa, but you have to keep the same energy for Frank Wright because just the year before he got fired, they had a chance to go to the playoffs. They had a win in your in scenario against the Jacksonville Jaguars, the worst team in the league that had not won a game. What did the Colts do? They lost to be the only win for the Jaguars that season, and they missed the playoffs. So it happens to everybody, man. Sometimes it is what it is. And the opponents, the Jacksonville Jaguars, who didn't have a win, versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who had Tom Brady, the level of competition is different. So the energy needs to be the same if you're going to criticize Wilks for certain things. Look at these other coaches and criticize them for the same stuff. Take your personal feelings out of it. Try to make it as objective as possible. I would be good with Frank Wright or Steve Wilks. I like the experience equation well. I feel like that plan would be good. There may be some concerns about the offensive plans for both guys. The concerns for Steve Wilks would be, okay, you're a defensive-minded guy. Who's going to be your OC? What are you going to do if the OC is gone? What are you going to do about quarterback? According to all reports, that plan has been sound. I think Frank Wright could be a potential OC. Who knows? And I also think that Brian Johnson, the quarterback coach from Philly, could also be an option because I honestly think Shane Steichen from there may just stay. He may not even take a job. He may pull a Ben Johnson and stay. I know it's a lot of Johnsons and young guys I'm naming, but try to keep up, guys. I apologize. So we will see what happens there because I hear Steve Wilks has a plan, and I believe in Steve Wilks. We saw what he was able to motivate and get guys. As far as Frank Wright, there may be some skepticism because they saw that he didn't really like the young quarterback route. He went with Phillip Rivers and Matt Ryan and a retread Carson Wentz, and they really kind of underachieved. My opinion is that I don't know how much weight to give to Frank Wright to fault there or their front office. Their front office is clearly incompetent. Their owner he has a drinking issue, and they're just pretty much dysfunctional because they're really trying to actually hire Jeff Saturday to be their permanent person. That lets you know all the things you need to know about the problems there. Not to mention, there probably was a little bit conflicted. They probably thought they were in win now mode there. I don't see Frank Wright coming to David Tepper and selling him a plan on veteran quarterbacks instead of getting a young guy because we've done the veteran retread game already with Matt Rhule. I don't think Frank Wright would be a finalist for this opportunity if he was telling David Tepper that, hey, I want to go get the next guy off the street, whether it's Carr or Tannehill or Tom Brady, and go with them. There has to be a plan long-term for the quarterback in place from Frank Wright for him to even be this far in the equation. What's Kellen Moore's plan? I have no idea. What's so attractive about him? I have no idea. He's young, and he put up a couple of high-powered offenses with the Cowboys. I don't know. But we will see. And as this stuff tends to change from a day-to-day basis, I will try to stay on top of it as much as possible when news are notable. But for now, the finalists are Frank Wright, Steve Wilks, and Kellen Moore in no particular order, and with no pretty much classification if they're going to add any other finalists, but we just haven't heard because all those second interviews have already happened for those guys, and we haven't heard about any other second interviews for anybody else. We dodged that Sean Payton bullet. Thank the Lord in heaven that we did. And you guys let me know how you feel down below in the comments about the potential 3 finalists that I named. Are you rank them in order for me? I want to know who you think is your top 3 in that order. So let me know how you guys feel down below in the comments. Make sure you are subscribed down below and make sure you hit the bell icon. That way you don't miss any videos about this stuff because I'm updating it like crazy. So without further ado, I'm signing off. I'll see you next time. Peace.